Hey guys, welcome to the video over chapter 1 about They Say, I Say. This is just going to be kind of a quick overview and review. Make sure you are still reading the chapter though. This is just going to kind of hit the high points. So our goals with this video is understanding what we're talking about when we say they say. We're going to review the 4 ways to introduce what they say, and we're going to understand what we mean when we're talking about return sentences. So unless you're the original human, as the book says, someone has said something about your topic before you. You're not the first one to talk about the things we're going to talk about in this class. And unless you're that original human, you're probably not the first one to talk about what you're going to talk about for the rest of your life. Your topic is a conversation that's been taking places over generations and across cultures. These are things that are happening across the world long before you, will keep happening long after you. So because it's a conversation, your argument's simply adding to it. The conversation started before you got there and will more than likely continue after you leave. If you think of it kind of like a dinner party, the people were talking when you arrived, the people are going to keep talking after you leave. Your reader is coming to the conversation after you, and you need to catch them up. So to do that, you begin by explaining the conversation, or the they say. When we're talking about the they say, all we're talking about is you introducing the reader to the conversation they're entering into. So you ask yourself, but why do I need to introduce what they say? It's my argument. It's your thesis. You're right, it is your thesis. But establishing they say early in the argument helps keep the audience engaged. It makes it more likely they're going to be able to follow your argument. It makes it less likely that they're going to be bored. If it's just you talking about your point, you're going to bore people if they don't understand the relevance, if they don't understand that conversation. So you need to establish what they say. It helps prevent this kind of boredom from happening. So you establish this, you establish what they say in the context section of your introduction. Remember, your introduction looks like an upside down triangle. You start with your hook, then you give your context, then you build down to your thesis. In that context section is where you introduce what they say. So it's after your hook, but before your thesis. And you have to be careful to balance the amount of they say you give. You don't want to spend too much time talking about what everyone else says, but you don't want to spend so little time talking about what everyone else says that your reader doesn't understand what you're talking about. You've got to find that balance. So again, you don't want too much, it bores them. If you keep talking about what everyone else says, you're going to get boredom. If you talk too little, you're going to get confusion. You have to find that balance, and that's one of the things we're going to be working on this year. Balance is going to equal an engaged audience. It's going to equal a more effective argument. You're going to be more persuasive. So if we look at Orwell here, Politics in the English Language, he opens up with what they say about English. He establishes the conversation he's entering into. Essentially, he's saying, they say English is doomed and it can't be saved. So he says, they say this, I believe this. Hence the title of the book we're having you read, They Say, I Say. So how do you do this in your essays? Like we talked about, it comes in your context, but how do you actually do it? There's 4 basic ways. You use the standard view when what they say is the standard or conventional way of thinking about a topic. This is that conventional wisdom Levitt and Dubner talk about in Freakonomics. Another way to do it, you can make what they say something you say. This is most often used when you're talking about your changing views. You used to believe something, now you believe this. What they say is what you used to believe. A third way is when what they say is implied and you've looked between the words to find it. They don't come right out and say their beliefs. You've got to infer them. And then the final way to introduce what they say is part of an ongoing debate. A lot of what we'll talk about in this class this year is part of an ongoing debate. It's not settled. So that will be the way you use most often. So those are your four basic ways to introduce it. And again, your book has many more details and more specifics. This is just an overview. You need to read the chapter. You also need to make sure that you're coming back to what they say throughout your paper. So after you've established what they say in your introduction, you want to include what are called return sentences in your essay. You don't want to lose sight of what they say, and you don't want to let the reader forget what conversation you're participating in either. Return sentences provide reminders for you and your reader what conversation you're taking part in, what you're responding to. So these are sentences that are strategically placed throughout your argument that just remind the audience, remind the reader, hey, here's the conversation, here's what they say. You need to make sure you're doing that. So to review, your argument's part of a larger conversation. You're going to need to establish what they say early in your paper. That's that conversation. They say equals the conversation. You do that in the context of your intro, and then you keep returning to it. You want to make sure you're balancing how much they say you provide. Too much, and you get boredom. Too little, you get confusion. So you've got to kind of find that middle path. It's that Goldilocks situation. There's four basic ways to do it. There's the standard view. There's when they say is something you used to believe. When what they say is implied and you have to infer it. And when what they say is part of an ongoing debate. And then you have to include those return sentences. Those places throughout your argument where you're just reminding the reader, here's the conversation we're talking about. So that's the video over chapter 1 of They Say, I Say. Again, it's just a quick overview. You need to read the chapter. This does not substitute for reading the chapter. This is just kind of a reminder that you can come back to or give you a preview of what you're going to read. So, we look forward to working on this year, and we'll see you guys in class. Thanks.